Hi, everyone, and welcome to an episode of the Digital Twin Sessions, our half-hour quick discussions with digital twin leaders around the world. Welcome to episode number 3, and I've got with me in this discussion Julian Watts from KPMG, who's a director there. Julian, thanks so much for joining us.
Not a problem, Adam. Thanks for the invite and great to be here.
Pleasure. Let's start with sort of the fundamentals. Who are you and what do you do?
All right. So as per your intro, yes, I'm a director at KPMG. I'm not an accountant. I'll start with that. But I am a bit of a, if you go back long enough, I am a geo geek from way back. So started in the space of high accuracy GPS, satellites, imagery, that type of thing. Moved into government assets, did a lot of asset management across different sectors. Jumped out into consulting, went over to the UK, supported the development of the international standards for assets, for BIM, some of the early 1192 ones, and then jumped back down under and have been with our team here within KPMG. We've got a practice called Engineering and Asset Management. We do all sorts of things from the strategy through the whole of life, through the analytics and the intelligence, for any asset intensive type industries, and so just making sure that they can realize value for their customers.
Okay,
so that's pretty much me.
Yeah, excellent. We're of course we're recording this in a time of a global pandemic, which is COVID-19. I'm going to get onto that in a moment. Let's start with digital twin through your lens and your world, and you've given a brief intro there.
Yeah.
We of course have digital twin perspectives from the built environment, from manufacturing, from aerospace, all different types of perspectives. So question one is, through your lens, talk to me about the value of digital twin.
So probably that's a good kind of intro, because I think everyone does have a different lens, and we kind of look at where digital twins have come from, and there's this big manufacturing background that comes with it. But what we're starting to do is play with, well, what does that look like for policy, for governments, to try and simulate what policy changes might do for citizens. What does it mean from a planning perspective, from a financial forecasting and investment perspective, from a process of a physical asset in its operational process in the supply chain, especially where we've got these disruptive globalization of supply chains, from a people aspect around trying to simulate where do we need the resources, how are people interacting with different assets, and how are customers using them. I guess from my perspective, from that sort of geospatial base and bringing together this sort of fabric that we start to talk about, digital twins sitting and nesting together in this as they all connect from a global perspective. That's where I live, right? That's where I love the concept that digital twins are enabling us to piece together our whole world and make it very real, and make the value of all of the data that we have come to life. So that's kind of a key aspect for me.
Yeah, I had an interesting question posed to me the week before last. Time is a blur at the moment, but it was sort of like the idea of a national digital twin, and we know the UK are sort of, through the Centre for Digital Built Britain, there's this idea of a national digital twin. I've heard the same from New Zealand as well. And the question was kind of, do we do a whole of city digital twin? I was talking to a local authority. Do we do a whole of city digital twin, or kind of do we, it's digital twins for these component parts, this infrastructure project, we've got buildings that are coming through, like a BIM journey. You're obviously sort of a spatial guy, grounded as well. What's your quick sort of view on this idea of scale of a digital twin? I find it quite a fascinating one.
It is a bit of a challenge as well, right? And I think we quickly lean back on is the data going to join together? Do we have all the right standards? Is it interoperable? Can I ask a very detailed question of a widget over here and look at that from a global perspective? And I think we're kind of all, that would be a nice utopic perspective to get to, but it's more about do what you can with what you've got. You know, look at the fidelity of the data that you've actually got available and start to realize value from that. And from that that sort of value-driven perspective, you're lot more likely to move forward and to realize some wins out of it, rather than try to go into a dark space and build everything perfectly.
Yeah,
and it never eventuates, or something else takes it over.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, it's a bit of this challenge and pendulum swing between get all of the data standards right versus get some outcomes from things. And I think if you think of from that data platform, there's a real what is the most current data that you can have, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be real time. It just means it needs to be current. And so if some data is static, it might be current for the last 10 years, but it just means that you're looking at the best data that's available, and it drives us to a place that better data means better decisions. And that's the simple kind of tagline that I'd kind of like to see go with the digital twins, is that it is about just better data, meaning better decisions. And from that perspective, you can have that data anywhere. It could mean that it's in the boardroom with you. It could mean that it's in the field with you. It could mean that it's in your home office with you, and you can actually start to interact with that from a understanding. If you've got a large dispersed asset base, and this, you know, leaning on this geospatial idea that a lot of organizations with operational assets have assets sprawled all over the place, and you want to understand how that operation as a portfolio is working. That ability to be able to drill in to a certain location and to have more and more fidelity, but it's not necessarily that everything has to be purely linked, but that ability to drill further and further down, and then to jump into an environment and to be able to model that specific environment, and then be able to lift up and say, if I'm modeling across my portfolio, that might be a completely separate type of environment, but they are related.
That sort of reference you made just then before, better data, better decisions. So our sort of global crises right now, I don't think there's a kind of like a more meaningful kind of idea and aspiration around better data, better decisions. You recently, Julian, penned a LinkedIn article about the role of digital twin, COVID-19. Share with me kind of what was at the heart of those ideas and what prompted you.
I think it was part of this issue that we're all trying to make decisions in an imperfect environment, and a highly complex and changing and uncertain environment as well. And that ability to just have visibility of what other people are doing, what is happening with my portfolio, how are citizens and communities interacting with things, making that more available to decision makers on platforms that other different types of decision makers are comfortable with, is a really key aspect. So it's not just about having a very technical, detailed widget of something that's hived away, but it makes it very difficult for executive decision makers to get access to that, and to understand, well, in a very imperfect environment, how can we make the best decisions? And I have to rely on my personal judgment or my gut feel, which is, as we know, can lead us down a bit of a dangerous decision-making path. So I think from a perspective of how do we get that out there, how do we bring together different layers, different sectors into a common base, and allow them to share whatever data that they have to share from a public data perspective, share data from a hang up on someone. Share data from a collective perspective. What are they willing to share with other data providers? From who would they be comfortable accessing another level of detail, and then who would they be comfortable accessing an even greater level of detail, so that from a government perspective, if you've got all of your agencies sharing their data, you can start to see, should I make this decision in isolation, or should I collaborate, or should I integrate, and see if there's opportunities for economies of scale, or opportunities to be able to coordinate with another agency.
For those that may kind of, I don't want to use the word sort of digital twin critics, but for those that sort of, come forward and say, well, that's kind of the role of shared data and open data, right? I've got an open data platform, or I've got a data sharing agreement. Kind of what's your, what's your sort of additional, advice and explanation around that additional or added functionality of the digital twin? Because you and I and a bunch of others, we're digital twin advocates. We think, given what it is and its functionality and the idea is extremely powerful. It is more than just open and shared data, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you're not linking really clearly to an outcome, to some type of use case that someone's going to realize value, then all you are is a collective data body, right? Which we've got. There's plenty of opportunities for those, and there's requirements for sharing data. But it's not until you say, this is the decision we're trying to make, and this is how a decision will be enabled from that data, how you can link a clear line of sight between this data supports better outcomes through that decision, and this is how that would come together, and these are the people that would need to be involved, that it kind of brings it to life. We talk a lot about data as an asset. The challenge that we have around truly treating data as an asset is that you have to realize value from that asset. You wouldn't build a physical asset if you didn't really need it. And you wouldn't not maintain and reinvest in a physical asset. So why would we do the same with our data? And you wouldn't get a business case over the line for a physical asset if you didn't have a clear benefit for it. So that's, if we carry on that narrative, you've got to understand that that data has to have an outcome, has to have a value. And the more you drive that narrative, the better the data will get. So it will naturally get better because you use it, and you get the feedback loop that says, the decision wasn't great, how can we improve the data? And you get that whole life cycle thing happening with reinvesting in the data and improving the data. And you only get that space if you actually use it, right?
Yeah.
There's no point at just being available. It's got to be used.
Yeah. Okay. So herein lies the $64 million question. How do we create a thriving digital twin marketplace? Right? There's everyone wants it. We've got fantastic sort of suppliers on the supply side, and there's policy, and where we're realizing value and benefit to the community. Let's kind of try and explore that. And at times I sort of try and draw a sort of a line of sight back to the BIM journey, right? Which is has been around for a good couple of decades. The capability, we've been capable for decades. From a technical perspective, we've been ready to go, for 20 years. We certainly have had plenty of dialogue and conversation. If you Google BIM strategy Australia, I think I did it earlier this year, you'll come up with, strategy after strategy after strategy by NGOs and governments and papers. And yet I feel like it's just been the last kind of 5 years where the wheels have started turning, and some will view that as being unfair, but I lay that out because it's a really, I think, a really important reference point for us in that it could help guide how we should sort of shape the digital twin one. So I think when I do the postmortem on that past 20 years, part of me feels like the demand was just not there. Because if the demand was there, every project would be delivered sort of, in BIM, 4D, 7D, pick a D, it doesn't matter. But kind of, I feel like the demand just hasn't been there. So I don't know whether it's been a communication issue, the value, we haven't been able to articulate the value. How do we make digital twin, how do we make a thriving marketplace? How do we make it absolutely desirable and that there's no other option? And as the data conversation continues to sort of, evolve and mature, I mean, it's kind of perfect timing. Help me break down the idea of creating a thriving digital twin marketplace. Just a simple one.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and so the thing is, let's make it easy, right? You've got to stick with an analogy to keep it easy for people. So you go, pick apart those words, the marketplace. What does that look like? And what does a traditional marketplace need to have? You've got to have a commodity or a currency to trade with, right? And so if we use, say, Amazon as a bit of an analogy for that, and say what we're doing is trying to trade data, then it opens up all sorts of new consumers and possibilities. So our challenge with BIM has been that it's been very much focused on the designers and the construction, and it's only for projects. So when you look at whole of global infrastructure, new projects are only a very small part of that. And the challenge that if you try to create a whole holistic industry just on project side of things, you miss the opportunity to implement that for all of operations. And there's so many assets in operation. There's so many not just physical assets, but processes, but financial processes, policy processes that are in operations. They're not just during development and design. So it's a massive opportunity for digital twin, because one challenge is that BIM was kind of driven and mandated around new projects need to take it on board, and so that got us to a point of it. If you look at your whole portfolio, it's going to take you several decades to actually get your entire portfolio in that space. Whereas with digital twin, the opportunity to retrofit, to start using things straight away. You've already got, the really low level baseline digital twin is a spreadsheet of what have I got, where is it? You can start to add some fidelity, what condition is it in, what performance, what utilization, how are people using that? So it's a real opportunity to say, let's explode and do this at a whole operational level, as well as new build, and we've got great models that are coming out from the new side. But that ability to start at any point, to not sort of wait till you've got a full-on 7D model for things. You can start with very, very simple information across a very large portfolio and a very large user base. So I think that's a great opportunity to say, let's make this really wide reaching, expand to new customers that we haven't reached out to, the financial industry, the data industry, and analytics, and allow those people into the space and not sort of be closed with the cohort of people that can access. And then you can carry on that narrative around that marketplace trading platform, right? And be really clear about, well, who are my producers? And understand producers can come from all sorts of areas, because we all use data for different things. We might produce data, but be really clear about who the consumers are. And if we can get a handle around that, we can start to tag this idea of data as a currency and as value, and say that if you produce that, there's got to be value back to you to share that, to put it onto a platform, to a marketplace. And if you consume it, there's got to be value for you to consume it. Because if it's everything's free, then people don't perceive value. So there's got to be some type of currency, kudos, call it whatever system of currency you like. but there's got to be some type of trading aspect to it. Then you can start to look at, well, how do people add value on top of other people's data, and be really clear about what value has been added there. But I think a key part of that, is the challenge that we have with data is the trust aspect, right? And governance in that trust. So, who's going to police and govern a platform for trading data? How do you actually tag a trust rating? And we carry on that Amazon idea. Well, trust is done through a people-style blockchain rating system, right? That the more people that use your product, they give you feedback, and that feedback is public, and therefore people trust that feedback. So why can't we do that with data? If I use your data to make a decision, I give you feedback, that feedback is public, and then other people say, great, this is good data, I want to use that. It elevates the value of that data, and all of these other good things that come with it. So I think that's a key part, and then just making sure that all of these different players and consumers and producers understand their role in that marketplace, and making it sort of a very open space, but also pulling in the different industry bodies, and not saying we're trying to create something new over here, and it's invite only party. It needs to be collaborative. We need to lean on everything that we've learned, and do it in a way that we've actually we treat learnings as data, and we value those learnings, and we build on the past.
I have the benefit of not being a sort of a content specialist in digital twin or many things, but I get to sort of ask provocative questions. And I was at an event last year around digital twin, and I tried to visually draw the digital twin on a slide, not draw a digital twin, but the digital twin. And yeah. I kind of had this big dotted line going through the middle of the slide, and I sort of said, that's the internet, right? This big dotted line is the internet. And because you can, and what I wanted to do is I wanted to sort of get your sort of reactions, confirm or deny what my sort of comment was. Technically speaking, because you can plug a digital twin into the internet, you can kind of the types of data that you can bring into the internet, strategic, high level, granular, real time, lead, lag, whatever it is, you can, and if it's geotag, you can visually sort of plot it. You can kind of put anything into a digital twin. And I was sort of saying to this gentleman from the state government, I was saying, we could even in real time, or let's just pick monthly, we could plug in the spend progress of this infrastructure project that you're managing. Or the number of current available beds at the Royal Women's Hospital, or the amount of linear curb space that is currently occupied or not. I mean, it is virtually endless, right? Because we can connect it to the internet, and it's only restricted by what we can sense and what data we can capture.
Sure.
Am I being ridiculous there?
No, I don't think so. And I think this is part of this making it open and giving power to people who want to make decisions with data.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that you don't need to put lots of rules and boundaries around things to say that, oh no, you can't possibly use it for that. That's not a digital twin. But making that open and just saying, here's some governing principles. And we've got some of those coming through already, so that's fantastic as a baseline. But allowing people to innovate and to grow their ideas, to allow them to come up with their own use cases, If you try to future cast a little bit of where digital and sensors and the internet and 6G and things like that are going to take us in the very near future, you can't put a constraint on that. Otherwise, it's going to put an expiry date on some type of platform that you don't want to have, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's good to be optimistic and far-reaching in your thinking, but reality is also good. So, final question, and back to reality, Julian. The last question for you is, walking away. What are our top 3 priorities? What are our top 3 priorities when it comes to digital twin and Australia?
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I think one of the we take our current environment. One of the great things that that global challenges put on us is it makes us come back and think about what are the real core activities, what does mission critical look like, and I think we talk a lot about realizing value from data and looking at use cases. I think one of the key priorities should be saying which use cases are mission critical. What are you genuinely, what has been the need of your decision making over the last few months? And if we can focus use cases around those things, then that you're onto some a winner that most people can resonate with. So I think that's a clear one. It's got to be use case driven to get us benefits. And the other one is kind of in that same space of don't wait. So increment, right? Just get into it. Take the fail fast, but take the iterative approach of build on something small. You don't need to have all your ducks lined up before you can start realizing outcomes. So let's get busy. And I think one of the other ones is trying to have that common hook. So what is the common language that we're all going to use? And if we use a narrative around whether if it's something like an Amazon that we can all kind of associate with, or if it's a geospatial base that we can all start to plug things into, just having that common hook that we can start to bring this idea of a federated suite of digital twins together. I don't think we need to be fully constrained by we all need to be following the same data standard. I think that's it's something that we're for us to work to, but if we can plug into and have a common fabric to hang things off, we'll just enable that collaborative nature to come together. So that's probably my 3.
Nice. Well, there's plenty of work for both of us there, and others, of course. Well, that's our sort of cue there to end. Julian, thanks so much for joining us on the Digital Twin Sessions. Look forward to catching up with you soon.
Great. Thanks a lot, Adam.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate.
You too.